All right. I just got a message from Gladys Wanga. She is the MP for the fine people of Homa Bay. And she says your panel is too Jubilee leaning. The Luo profiling is sickening. I guess that also goes directly to you. What do you make of that?
I am not, I was telling my friend, Professor Manyora, that I am known from the intellectual circles as a scholar of Mongiki. And that has taken me in trouble with some Kikuyu, personalities. And I'm not apologetic about that. Anything that violates the law in this country, there's no profiling. If I was 10, 20 years ago, I profiled the Kikuyu and said the Mongiki cannot be part of our society, and we continue to claim to be a civilized society. I say this much.
But the Mongiki was an illegal organization that terrorized the Kikuyu perhaps worse.
That's what Michuki was accused of. They are doing this and that. But by the same breath, we must be able to say that we must abide by the law. Now, the election we are having is a choice between to vote or not to vote. You can make that choice without carrying borders. You can make that without barricading roads. You can make that choice without threatening your life. Your own life.
The protests in Nairobi between the Nairobi business community and the NASA protesters has had violence on both sides.
Yeah, which is wrong. It's very wrong. That's what we are saying.
And the Nairobi business community are fronted by Jubilee leaders.
The voice of reason must be allowed to prevail in this case. And we are saying we have a legal process. We are implementing an order from our Supreme Court to conduct a new election in line with. Now, to begin to mount a high moral ground by claiming that people did not vote, therefore you have won, that in itself is criminal.
Well, may I just let's put this all into context, because where we are going with this discussion, we are not going to see eye to eye. So this is the point at which we agree to disagree. The loss of Kenyan life in any situation is very regrettable. Police brutality can never be condoned. It's something that must be condemned in the strongest terms. And as I've said before, the citizens also have a responsibility to maintain peace as far as they're able, as far as they can. However, in the situation we are in currently, there are two things that are going on at the same time, and you're trying to behave as if it is one event. There is an election being carried out by the IEBC, and there is an active boycott being carried out by the members of the opposition. In my opinion, if you try to merge the two, it's immiscible. It's like oil and water. It cannot mix. So look at the success of each based on its own parameters. If it is an election, does it meet the threshold for an election? Does it meet the legal requirements of an election? Judge it on that and finish it on that. If it is a boycott, was it successful? Because now by calling for a boycott, and I guess that's where the professor is coming from.
Yes.
By calling for a boycott that is successful, then you have won. What have you won? You haven't won the election, but you have made your point, definitely, politically. On the other hand, looking at the way the election is coming out right now, you will look at the percentages, because everything is percentage against the total votes cast. They will tell you it will be 99% for Uhuru Kenyatta, maybe. Somebody was saying he's competing with Dettol, 99.9% effectiveness. If that is where we are headed, then that will be the declaration, and you will say the election was very, very successful. So as Kenyans, we need to choose which ball we are playing with. Is it the ball of the boycott or the ball of the election? But now moving forward, because legally, this election will be defensible. And then there will be a declaration, and then there will be a swearing in, and then there will be a government.
Legally, this election will be defensible, you say?
It will be defensible. Because now the legitimacy question is what will be left, because that is a moral question now. It's not a legal question anymore. But now moving forward, therefore, you'll find that Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto, unlike the opposition leaders, because they will be in power, they'll be left holding this monkey of a fractured nation, this monkey of injured individuals, this monkey of Kenya, the laughing stock to the world. And it is up to them to now put aside politics, come down to the level of Kenyans and tell them, look, moving forward, what can we do to make this right?
Okay. Before we continue, Joseph Simecha, the NASA strategist, also tweeted in. He says, we in Vihiga, Kakamega, Busia and Bungoma also boycotted and protested. Does Kagwanja know that, or does he can't talk about it because we're not Luos?
Not really. I mean, I would hate for somebody to tribalize this.
You did that.
No, let me say
you
this.
Did that.
Let me say this. My business partner is James Orengo's cousin, Ken Orengo. Are you getting the point?
That is not
so the whole idea of about tribal.
It's saying I'm not tribal because I have a friend who's from the other tribe.
No, not a friend. Not a friend.
Yes. A business partner.
I put my stakes, my life at stakes with the so.
But we have a contract, a memorandum of understanding, and all of those things.
My sister is
so
married.
You got legal cover.
My sister is married in Bondo. If you want to know, the other one is married in Siobod in Busia. Are you getting it? And I'm married elsewhere. This is the whole question of the tribe. We are talking about criminal versus non-criminal. The fact that I say section of the rural community, if you look at the map of violent protest, is on the wrong, is the same as I said the Kikuyu community is misbehaving with the Mungiki, and I published it. So let's not be, don't try to silence me by brandishing the ethnic card. I will not buy that, because it is not ethnic. Crime by Kikuyu, crime by Ruo, crime by Ruya, crime by everybody is a crime to the Kenyan. The issue is, can Kenya return to reason and abide by the rule of law? Do your protest, do your agitation within the law. That is why the court has become so important in our life. When I felt, or when we felt as a council of professionals, that Kanora Sanga had said something that went beyond the elbow, we took him to High Court. And he came and defended himself, and it was said he did not do anything wrong. We have never exchanged anything with the Kanora Sanga, but he drove all the way from his place or sent his lawyers to the High Court to defend himself against our charge that he is inciting his people to violence. That is how we play it, by the law. So can somebody tell the youth?
Why haven't you brought up a case against inciting people to violence by Moses Kuria?
I mean, he has been in jail many times. You don't kill an animal too many times, can you?
Yeah, well, that's awfully convenient, though.
Yeah,
that you see what's wrong with Colonel Rasanga and the other half of the country.
No, ask me why did I take Nyong'o? Is it because he was my teacher?
I don't think we'll agree on this. Prof. Manyora is
Larry, you know, let's not make this thing academic. Let's not take matters that are lightly. What is happening in this country is serious.
It's tragic.
This country is at a point where we could even break it. And let's not play around. When we say, and my sister Joy talks about some people in Makueni staying home and not voting, it's okay. But remember, they are protesting bitterly about an injustice that has persisted from the 1960s. So people will protest differently. Is that right? But what I do know, when people are agitated so much, it will be naive of us to expect that they'll just say, okay, let Jubilee people vote. And no, you will expect some kind of resistance. And the resistance takes different forms. You could offer passive resistance, just stay at home. You could protest by demonstrating. The demonstrations could become a bit violent, and that's how I was roping in the intelligence, saying you must be aware of all these possibilities as an intelligence, and together with the intellectuals who work around the presidency, inform the leadership of the country the right direction to take.
Okay. And Ndungu Wainaina has also tweeted in, Professor Munene, can the panelists candidly claim the election took place in coastal, western, northeastern, Ukambani counties with a turnout of 3%?
Thank you. I know Ndungu Wainaina. He has an interesting mind. So, yes, elections took place.
With a 3% turnout in some cases?
Yes, they did. They did.
How?
You heard the station was opened. The election officials were there. Those who wanted to vote, voted. Those who did not want to vote, did not vote. That's an election. There is nowhere where it says that an election takes place only when 100 people out of 100 people vote. Nowhere. There's no logic to that extent. So elections took place. Some people don't like it, which is okay. Some people like it, which is okay. Now, the procedure and rules as we know them, elections take place when polling places and officials are there to offer service. People show up. They are identified nowadays biometrically. You put your thumbprint there, and they said, yes, you are okay. And you get your ballot, you mark it, you put it in a box, and you leave. That's an election, even if only one person does it. So yes, there was an election.
Can you ask me some
before
question?
Herman, you jump in. Before you jump in. I know you like jumping in. So Ndongo, be sure an election took place. The turnout was not as high as some people would have expected. That is true. The winning margin for the winning candidate,
right,
who happens to be Uhuru at this time, is more than expected. Because these people are talking about 70%. Now it's over 90%. My winning margin. So whichever dynamics you look at it, an election took place, except in those places that Chebukati said will have a repeat tomorrow. Except those ones.
Let me ask the same question.
And it is not Nyanza. It is some constituencies, but not Nyanza.
Question from Dongo Wainaina again. Can you candidly claim the election took place in coastal, western, northeastern, Ukambani counties with a turnout of 3%?
Larry, a nation is in deep problems and troubles when its men and women who are in critical positions and who are endowed with resources, especially of the mind, choose to mislead the nation, especially to mislead the leaders, and in a manner that could end up destroying a country. As an educated person, none of us can claim that we have gotten the education we have gotten purely from the proceeds of the sale of the goats of our grandfathers. For every 1 shilling your parents paid for you to be educated up this level, if you are a Kenyan,
right,
the government spend more than 9 shillings. And therefore you are a product of society. Society has taken you to school to reach levels which my colleagues here have reached. They owe it to the same society to tell them truth, especially at critical moments like this, when the king is naked. It is always the educated men and women who tell the king is not naked. It is important that you tell the king no election took place in a majority of the areas of this country.
So the advisors to the king, like Kagwanza here. Is the king naked?
Professor Manyora is being alarmist. He's being alarmist because, I mean, and for Dongo Wainaina, I would tell him, he was my intern, I would tell him to go back to school. And no arrogance, no hated men, he go back to school.
Why?
So that you handle data scientifically and logically. 62% of the French this year did not vote for Macron. They did not vote for anybody. Do the French have a president? Why are you putting standards for Kenya, which even most advanced democracies did not? 51% of the Americans did not turn out to vote for Clinton in 1996. What are you trying to tell us? Now, 44% of Kenyans did not turn out to vote in 2002, the most celebrated election. What are you telling us? The point is this: we had an election. An election is defined in two forms. We had an election and it is defined in two forms. In legal terms, the fulfillment of the procedures and processes. In August, we had an election. It was nullified on the basis of the process. What did you do and what did not do?
All right.
Nobody looked at the turnout. Uhuru Kenyatta had over 54% of the vote. Who cared about that? Now, we are worried about raw voter turnout because we emphasized on the processes. And the same people who are talking about no turnout are inclined to look at the processes. So we are making the processes clear, and I want my colleague, my professional colleague, Dr. Manyora, or Professor Manyora, to stop being alarmist. threatening the country that we are hurtling down, that we are hurtling down to violence. No, we are not. The country is peaceful. It is terribly peaceful.
Right of reply, yes, Prof.
You see, when you talk of 56%, and you could be right, I have no idea of, but the entire country voted.
Yes.
We are talking about significant portions of this country, geographical portions of this country, not voting. We are talking about entire communities not participating in this election. If that is not grave, if that cannot drive a country into self-destruction, then I don't know what can.
Why don't you take the blame where it is supposed to be? Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka and others told Kenyans not to exercise their right to vote, but to stay at home and boycott an election that was ordered by a Supreme Court. What other criminality do you expect?
How is that criminal? Telling people not to vote?
Yeah,
right not to vote.
No, you don't have to tell them. They make that independent choice. That's why we have a ballot.
What law did they break?
By just inciting people.
The milk comes to temper the coffee. Yeah? Yes. It's become too bitter.
Yes.
We have a little bit of sugar cannot hurt. We have to remember something, and that's the point I was trying to make earlier. We are trying to compare the boycott and the election, and they're two different things, and they're immiscible in this discussion. If you've got a voter turnout of 3% in an area that is definitely an opposition stronghold, and we are all aware that there is a boycott call, that is not a tragedy. It's not a surprise, because we expected that the people would heed the call of their leader. And so the 3% who turn out are either the ones who are brave enough and not apathetic to the process.
All right.
One thing we also need to remember, I must admit I'm sitting in a panel of eminent persons. All of them intellectually and also in terms of age have gone way ahead of me. So I do not claim to have a reservoir of wisdom over what they're discussing. But there is something that I do know. I have studied a little bit of election cycles, and I know a repeat election almost always has a much lower turnout than the original election. That is fact across the world. Secondly, the point that Professor made earlier, a comfort
Which
election.
Professor? We have many.
Kagwanza.
Yes.
A comfort election where there's no perceived threat, where you know the outcome anyway, has an even lower turnout. So the question of turnout, in my opinion, is neither here nor there.
Okay.
What we should be.
I want to.
Point,
hang on. Wait.
Point that I must acquiesce is the point that Professor Manyora is making. The real problem we have right now is not the election. Was it legal or not? It was legal. Was it legitimate or not? It depends on who you ask. But the real problem we have as Kenyans right now is that we are societally fractured. We are broken. And if we cannot find a way to pull this nation together. For example, there are things that the opposition has been talking about that the Uhuru government, even as they come in, would be very, very unwise if they don't pay attention to.
Okay.
Tribalism, corruption, wanton waste, lack of inclusivity. Those are things we've had over and over again. If they don't address it, then the country, as he says, we risk losing it all.
Okay.
So it's not the election or otherwise. Where are we as a nation? And right now, we are not at a good place. As a country, we must admit it.
Let's leave it there just for the moment, if you would, please. I'm going to come back and we have plenty more time to discuss these issues in detail. But I want to give you an update from different parts of the country. President Uhuru Kenyatta won the Kajiado East and Kajiado Central constituencies after garnering about 50,000 votes in those two areas. Only Jubilee Party agents were at the constituency tallying center at around 4:30 a.m. this morning when Nancy Ndunge, the constituency returning officer, announced the results, and our NTV's Leila Mohammed was also there.
After an entire night of counting and recounting and just tallying, just to finalize the numbers in terms of who has won here in Kajiado Central, Nancy Ndunge, the Kajiado Central returning officer, has just announced that Uhuru Kenyatta takes the day here with about 20,198 votes, this having come from a total votes cast of 20,592, and those were the votes that were taken here. The rejected ones were 53 Raila Amolo Odinga, despite the fact that he did not participate in this repeat election, was able to garner 262 votes, being the second contestant here in Kajiado Central. Dr. Ekuru Aukot with 47, Muhammad Abdu Badida with 43, Japheth Kaviu Kaluyu with 14, Mwaura with 10, Joseph Nyaga with 12, and Cyrus Jirongo with only 6 votes. Kajiado Central has a total number of registered voters as at 56,263.
Come to the end of our work, of our activity, of our undertaking. And now I want to announce the results for the presidential election, for the fresh presidential election in Kajiado Central constituency. Here are the results. Total registered voters, 56,463. John Ekuru Aukot Longoji, 47. Mohammed Abduba Dida, 43. Shakalaga Jirongo, 6. Japheth Kavinga Kaluyu, 14. Uhuru Kenyatta, 20,198. Michael Wainaina Mwaura, 10. Joseph William Viganyaga, 12. Raila Odinga, 262. Total valid votes, 20,592. Rejected ballots, 53.
We also have results from Kajiado East constituency, where the total number of registered voters is 102,849. The rejected votes were 101. The votes cast were 31,323, and Uhuru Kenyatta takes the bulk of those votes, garnering 30,809. Raila Odinga, again, despite the fact that he was not part of this vote, became the second contestant with 304. Dr. Ekuru Aukot with 101. Muhammad Abdu Badida with 69. Kaluyu with 12. Mwaura with 9. And Joseph Nyaga with 14 votes. So those are results from 2 constituencies out of the 5 here in Kajiado County. As at now, early in the morning, after an entire evening of counting of votes, most of those polling officials having arrived here as late as 12 midnight, others arriving at 10, and this process being quite slow, and the returning officers not taking anything to chance, just to ensure that the numbers add up and that the final Form 34As will be able to highlight exactly the will of the people of these 2 constituencies. From here in Kajiado County, I am Leila Mohammed.
So Leila did not really sleep last night because she was out there all through the day and the night following that process. In Kitui County, the vote counting and tallying is still ongoing right now, and NTV's Sheila Sandeyo is there for us.
Managing the credibility of the repeat presidential election centered around the results transmission system, a process that the IEBC says it had streamlined to ensure that it is a simple, accurate and a verifiable one, and to eliminate electoral fraud. Now, the constituency tallying center is an important part of this results transmission path, given that the results announced here are final and cannot be altered at the National Tallying Center. This therefore means that the constituency returning officer has to verify all the results coming in from the polling stations, the scanned images of the Form 34A, cross-check that with the physical statutory form delivered at the constituency level. Here at the Kitui Central constituency, for instance, the returning officer had to verify all the results forms coming in from all the 153 polling stations across this constituency, the scanned images and the statutory forms delivered all night at this constituency tallying center. There's also a real-time live feed displaying the entry of results at the constituency level. The returning officer then collates all these results, in this case from all the 153 polling stations in Kitui Central constituency, prepare a Form 34B and announce the results, which are final.
Kavinga Kaluyu, 74 votes. Uhuru Kenyatta, 8,221. Michael Wanaina Maura, 14 votes. Joseph William Ndiga Nyaga, 13 votes. Raila Odinga, 308 votes. Total valid votes, 8,682. Rejected ballots, 55. Registered voters in this constituency, 70,769.
The constituency returning officer also provides a draft results declaration form to the agents to verify before he prints and signs the final statutory results declaration form. Now, once the form is signed by the agents, it will be transmitted to the National Tallying Center. All the 290 constituency returning officers are required to physically deliver the results declaration forms, that is the forms 34B, to the National Tallying Center at the Bomas of Kenya, and plus all the forms 34A from the polling stations within their constituency to support the constituency count. The IEBC says it has standardized all the results declaration forms to comply with the Supreme Court judgment.
Yeah, just so the U.S. Ambassador Bob Godek come in here to the Bomas of Kenya. I asked him for an interview because that's what we do. He said no. Will he be making a statement? He said probably not today, which means I'm going to be trying to get him for an interview after he gets out of the auditorium. If he refuses to be on live TV, never a dull moment. In the meantime, life in the city is trying to come back to normal right now. We sent out Sharon Baranga to try and just speak to the people and see what's happening.
Right now we are on Tomboya Street, a street just after Moi Avenue, and from what we can see here, it is totally different. Life is totally different from the other street. Here it is more busier, we have more people here, more businesses are open.
Naitwa Bob, mimi wa Isili Sako. Biashara iko chini transport wise. Juu tension imekuwa mingi.
Uchumi imekuwa chini sana. Mpaka biashara imesorota ukweli.
The atmosphere is all about politics right now. You can see there is nothing that is going on. In fact, I can urge our leaders to just settle everything because we have already voted. And that's what we are entitled to as Kenyans.
Kwa majina naitwa Anne Wanjiko Njao. I'm a beautician. I work in Fangano Street. Maisha imekuwa ngumu. Unafungua kazi, leo hakuna biashara, umetumia bus fare, umekula lunch na hata hujafanya kitu yoyote. Sasa tunaomba at least hii kitu ishe ndio maisha irudi normal.
If you have to be the party, sipati kabisa. Kwa hivyo sasa hii tunaomba hii siasa iiche.
My name is Kimani Kamau na niko salama, isipokuwa biashara yetu imeenda chini. Abiria hapa wakuji wanamwagika kama matone ya mercury, kamoja hata tuelewi namna gani.
So watch out to know life is back to normal in how the traffic is bad in the city. It's a Friday, it's payday weekend, so everybody's got money for fuel. If you can't get around, then you have a good sense of what's happening. Meantime, the leadership of the Seventh-day Adventist SDA Church asking the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, to postpone the date of the fresh election in select counties to another day. The SDA Church saying the repeat polls this weekend, meaning tomorrow, will interfere with the Sabbath, and adding that it will not allow Adventists to exercise their voting rights. In a letter addressed to the IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati, the head of the SDA Church, Pastor Samuel Makori says that holding the polls tomorrow will contravene the belief held by over 3 million Kenyans who worship on Saturday. while fielding questions from journalists on the postponed polls in Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay and Migori. The IEBC chairman called for sacrifice as it rushes against time to release the presidential results.
On Saturday, and did the commission consider that on Saturday we'll be having the Seventh-day Adventists going to church? Did you consider that it might interfere with them coming out to vote?
Thank you for your question. Let me say that we are working within the law. We are working within the constitutional framework. Election results must be announced within 7 days from today. And sacrifices must be given. And so the commission considered all factors before arriving at the day of Saturday. And it's not just Nyanza, as I said. We have other areas in the country where polling did not take place, and all those areas will be given an opportunity to exercise their rights on Saturday, those who want to vote. Those who don't want to vote will not be forced to vote. It's a constitutional right. And so the date of Saturday, or the day of Saturday, was taken after deliberation in the commission, taking into consideration the fact that time is a constitutional dispensation, and we must follow the framework in the Constitution.
That video was from yesterday when Wafula Chebukati gave the last update around 9 p.m. or so. Though we're awaiting that statement from this morning. It's actually it's no longer morning. It's 12 p.m. 12 minutes after 12 p.m. So it's no longer morning. We're still waiting for the IEBC. If any of you have a clock, it'd be a good time to look at it right now. And the whole country is really waiting for what happens next in this update. The preparations are still ongoing there. We saw a few people come in. The hall they're starting to fill up, but we don't have any indication as to when this will happen. We're also following a development in Bungoma where protesters are doing battle with police. Our reporter Zacchaeus Mesame has personally seen 2 bodies lying on the road. We're waiting for confirmation. We'll try and get back to him after the break. Right now, though, really quick break on Decision 2017. We're back in 2 minutes. Welcome back. This is Decision 2017. We're coming to you live from the Bomas of Kenya, the National Tallying Center for the fresh presidential election. We hear that in the next 10 minutes, maybe less, we will have a new update from the IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati, who will go up in the hall behind me and tell us what's happening. In the meantime, I want to take you to Mombasa. The main tallying center now, there's some results getting announced. Let's listen in. So we're having some that signal out of Mombasa, and this is technical gremlins. It works fine when you test it, you go on the air, it fails. You know what I can in fact give you right now? I want to take you back to Zacchaeus Mwasame in Bungoma. You have been telling us that you've seen at least 2 bodies lying on the road. Give us an update right now. What is happening?
Thank you, Larry. We are coming live from Bungoma here in Bungoma town. As like we indicated earlier on, it has been a busy day for us here, running up and down, demonstrators tackling the police left, right, and it has been a run all through. And as a result of that confrontation between the police and the demonstrators, we have had 2 people shot dead. One of them has been identified as Justus Barasa, a 36-year-old guy who was in the suburb, just on the outskirts of Bungoma. It is said that he was taking his lunch when he was shot by the police who were ransacking houses at around 11 a.m. here in Bungoma. And now the demonstrators have decided to carry one of the bodies and brought it to the road here as a sort of their frustration. In fact, the police have come and they have repulsed now the police, because the police now have been forced not to use the force. They have just gone back. Now, as you can see here, the bonfire is still happening here in town. As you can see, the bonfires are still here in town, Larry. And on the other side also, if my cameraman can just try to get those pictures the other side, you find that now the roads are still barricaded. And like we said earlier, the intention actually is not clear. Some of the demonstrators are not saying exactly why they're on the road and why they're blocking the roads. I think, but they are saying they're frustrated over something they are not very clear of. But then the police have now decided to retard from the confrontation. They have cleared, they were all over initially, and now the demonstrators have been left on their own in town. But still, the business has been affected here, Larry. As you can see also, the shops are closed. Almost all shops in town, except 2 or 3 supermarkets in the whole of this Bungoma, are open. But the other ones are closed. The business has been on a standstill since morning, and it has not been easy, even for the journalists. There are also some 2 people who are also hospitalized at the Bungoma Referral Hospital. One was hit on the head by a stone, and the other one was allegedly shot. We are yet to confirm that. We will be also heading to the hospital to ascertain that. But as at now, 2 people have been killed, but they were shot dead, and their bodies now are lying on the road. Larry.
And after that, we've had chief agents who verified that collation process, right from polling station number 1 to polling station number 187. And then the tallying clerks presented the results to me. My dear Rwanda High have also verified further correctness of the results that have been entered in Form 34B with reference to 34A. And upon my satisfaction and my real satisfaction, ICT printed Form 34B for the chief agents again to verify and sign against. The chief agents were invited. They verified the results for the 3rd time, and they were satisfied. And the 3 chief agents present from the Jubilee Party have appended their signatures on the last page. I've also appended my full names as they appear on my ID number and my signature, and today's date with the official stamp. I'd wish to announce the results formally from Vita constituency. Announcement of the collation of presidential election results from Vita constituency. The voters for all the 187 polling stations is 107,122. And the results are as follows. John Ekuru Longojogi Aukot, 58. Mohamed Abduba Dida, 203. Shakalaga Hua Jirongo, 8. Japheth Kavinga Kaluyu, 18. Uhuru Kenyatta, 18,107. Michael Wainaina Mwaura, 1. Joseph William Thiga Nyaga, 5. Raila Odinga, 328. Total valid votes, 18,728. Rejected ballots, 142. Thank you very much. Those are the results that have been collected for the purposes of the fresh presidential election from Vita constituency. Yes. The percentage of the voter turnout for Vita constituency, we had 18,728 who turned up against 107,122 registered. That gives us a percentage of 17.48% turnout from Vita constituency.
So from Mombasa County, I'm going to take you to one of the places where a lot of people scratching their heads are waiting for some kind of signaling regarding the election yesterday. Gladys Gashanje is at Jubilee headquarters. She joins me now. Gladys, what is the latest thinking there?
Thank you, Larry Modo. Yes, we're still at the Jubilee headquarters. It is pretty calm here, considering that this is the headquarters that actually harbors the party that is celebrating in different parts of the country in as far as how the turnout of just the ended election has panned out. But we are still awaiting those MPs who are supposed to come to the headquarters and surrender their copies of 34Bs. Just a quick reminder is that the members of parliament from each constituency were acting as the chief agents for the Jubilee presidential candidate, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, and they have been trooping into the headquarters to surrender the same 34Bs to the secretariat. Earlier on, we were speaking to the Juja MP who surrendered. He was the first one, and now we're saying that the Mathioya MP, that is Kimari Kihara, has actually come in and he has surrendered his 34Bs. We shall be talking to him in a few minutes. But before we get to it, just a quick reminder also that we're expecting that unexpected presser from the Jubilee Secretariat held, or rather led by the Secretary General, that is Raphael Tuju. We are getting information that they are at a briefing right now and about to give us their stand as a Jubilee party in as far as the just ended election is concerned. But for now, it is still quiet at the headquarters. Very few people coming in and out, even as they come to surrender those 34Bs. Remember, only the members of parliament from the different constituencies are coming to do so on behalf of the party, as they were actually acting as the chief agents for the Jubilee party, that is presidential candidate Uhuru Kenyatta. So when we get those details and as they keep trooping in, we shall be coming to you. But for now, we take you back to studio. Actually acting as the chief agents for the Jubilee, and that is presidential candidate.
So Gladys, the question I have is, do we know exactly when that statement will take place and what he is likely to say, because we haven't really heard much from the Jubilee Party, apart from that very dramatic press conference at the Pan-African yesterday, which was disrupted, and then they moved to the Serena. So apart from that, there's been quiet from Jubilee.
We'll be pushing them to try and get the direction they are taking, considering what happened at the Pan-Afric and, of course, the presser that followed up at the Serena. But we are told they are currently at a briefing. All officials are being briefed on the way forward in as far as the Jubilee Party is concerned. And up until they are actually on the same page is when they'll be able to talk to the media. But until we get to that, we have nothing to report about in as far as the Jubilee headquarters is concerned. But they keep telling us soon enough they will be stating their stand in as far as that just ended election is concerned, and how the different polling stations are faring in as far as the Jubilee numbers are concerned. And right now the activity right here is those 34 Bs that are being surrendered by the different MPs. And speaking of which, as I had said, I am now joined by the Mathioya MP, who is the second MP to come and surrender his 34 Bs. Karibu sana. How were the numbers in Mathioya?
Not bad. The numbers were quite very encouraging. The difference between the 8th August election and this one was just about 200 votes. And we are happy because the votes that were the president was able to garner are slightly higher than what he got in the last election, and he got 99.6% of the votes that were cast. So we are happy that the turnout was very good.
Okay, in as far as technical hitches, were there any that you were dealing with yesterday?
No, not at all. In the morning, in some areas we had problems with the machines. Our place is sometimes very cold, and I think the fingers were having a problem in the early morning. But later on, the system went very well, and we were able to conclude in good time. And by today morning, the counting had been finished and tallying, and we are happy that now we have made our returns.
Okay. And the decision to actually make the different MPs of the different constituencies as the chief agents of the Jubilee Party, do you think this is a good idea and should be implemented going forward into other elections?
I think it is it was important because we had already been elected, and the president needed to work with the people that he can trust, that will ensure that his votes are followed through in the right way. So the reasoning was very, very good. But in the normal election where we are also being elected, it may become difficult to choose who becomes the chief agent. But who knows? Maybe in the future, at some point, we will need to see whether we can, get these elections maybe some done in different dates, and it may be good in the future. Maybe we see because voting 6 people at the same time, I think if you look at the number of spoiled ballots then and now, like in my constituency, we have really minimized them. Last time we had more than 1,000 spoiled ballots. This time we had only 100 spoiled ballots. Yeah.
Okay. Now, there has been postponement of elections in 4 counties that will happen on Saturday. Yes. Do you think this will change any numbers in as far as the Jubilee is concerned?
My personal opinion is that those numbers will not really matter. But we are saying, as the president has said and as the party has continued to say, every person must be given the will, their choice to make and to participate in the election. And our prayer is that this country will continue to be united, that these elections now will be behind us, and now we can work together as one nation. So we're asking our brothers, those who want to participate in the elections, let them go and vote. Those who will not want to vote, it's their free will. Yeah.
Thank you for speaking to us, Kimari Kihara, the Mathioya MP, who was here to surrender his copies of the 34 Bs from his constituency. Remember, every MP from the Jubilee Party was acting as a chief agent for the Jubilee Party presidential candidates, that is Uhuru Kenyatta. He is the second one to actually come and surrender. Those earlier on, we spoke to the Juja MP, who also came and surrendered, and they all are speaking that the numbers are looking good. Some have gone up, some have stayed the same. But for now, we still wait for others to come, and we shall keep you updated on the same. And to that all-time presser that everyone has been waiting for from Jubilee, especially happened after what happened at Pan-Africa yesterday, we shall also keep you updated on the same as we await the Secretary General of the Jubilee Party to speak to the media anytime now. But for now, I take you back to Larry Madowo.
So I wonder what the sense is there. The Madowo MP obviously very happy with the results from his constituency. But from your sense, speaking to the leaders and the handlers and, well, the hangers-on at the party headquarters, like party headquarters often do, are they happy about what happened yesterday? Do you get a sense of optimism about the turnout? In Jubilee areas it was very high, but in the rest of the country rather low. What is their sense from what happened yesterday? Really quickly, Gladys.
It's interesting that you asked that question, because after we spoke to the Juja MP, I spoke to some of the people he trooped in with, and they were very concerned about the numbers they had heard from other strongholds or perceived Jubilee strongholds across the country. And to be precise, they are also very concerned, especially about the numbers that we are hearing have dropped, especially in Gatundu South. And you do know this is where President Uhuru Kenyatta voted and hails from. And they are saying such numbers dropping says a lot. It's a bit of a concern. But they're also very aware that the circumstances that were in August 8th are not the same circumstances that are now. And they all are hanging on to the narrative that just like with every runoff or any rerun, the numbers are not normally as they were when the first election was held. So this is not anything to be worried about. So as the numbers stand, their candidate is still leading, and that's what matters, Larry. And they all are hanging on to the narrative that just like with every...
Okay. So the numbers are a concern to them. We'll have to wait and see when the final results are announced again. Where they told us 10 minutes, but the IBC clearly does not have a clock, because morning went into afternoon, and now 10 minutes is going on to 30 and counting. No pressure. We'll be here whenever you're ready. Right now, though, I want to take you to Mombasa. Interviews Peter Mwangangi. He's been watching all of this region for us. Peter?
Thank you, Larry. We are still at the Chuda Day Secondary School here in Mombasa. This is the constituency tallying center for Mvita, and just a few minutes ago we saw the returning officer Hussein Omar read out the results, the final results for this constituency. Interesting numbers, Larry. If I can just give a correlation with what transpired on August 8th, because this is a tallying center which I personally covered together with my colleagues, Karim Rajan. In the just announced results, total results, is that the voter turnout here in this constituency was 17.48%. There are 187 polling stations, and out of that there are 107,122 registered voters, but those who cast their ballots are 18,728. Those are the total valid votes that were announced, that were cast rather, and 142 of them were rejected. Going into the details of who got what, Uhuru Kenyatta got 107,000 votes here in this constituency, compared, which is a little, which is less than what he got in during the August 8th election. In this particular constituency, he got 22,272 at that particular time, meaning about slightly more than 4,000 people either did not vote, either show up to vote for him, or did not vote at all. And for Raila Odinga, this time he had 328 votes compared to the 37,584 that he got during the August 8th election, meaning slightly over 37,000 people did not vote for him this time round. So those are the numbers here in Vita constituency. Of course, this is considered a constituency with a majority, a slightly bigger number of Jubilee supporters as compared to the other 5 constituencies in Mombasa County. Remember, in this constituency, this is where the Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala, as well as the former governor candidate Suleiman Shabal, and the former senator of Mombasa Hassan Omar, where they all voted. And it's an interesting mix of individuals, and we are continuing to look at the results from all the constituencies here in Mombasa. My colleague Nimrod Tabu and Peter Wainaina have been at the Shanzu Teachers Training College, where results for Kisauni constituency are being announced, and they will be bringing us updates. But we also have colleagues and correspondents all over this region, and later on we shall be briefing you on all the results from this from the coast. Later on, after this exercise, after results announced from the constituency tallying centers, now the returning officers head to the county tallying center for where the final results for this county will be announced, and then later on the officers will personally present the original documents, will travel to the Bomas of Kenya, where they will present the documents to the IEBC. That's all for now from Mombasa. Back to you, Larry.
So the question that will inevitably come up, Peter, based on all of these results that have come in, do we now have enough data to be able to trace the impact of the boycott on how Mombasa voted, or if President Kenyatta gained ground compared to the August 8th polls, according to the IEBC results, based on what you're seeing?
Larry, there's some feedback coming through. I could not quite clearly get your question, but if it's about President Uhuru Kenyatta gaining ground here in the coast region, this is just one constituency. We understand that in Changamwe, the results were not as are not the same as in this particular constituency, and in Kisauni, Jomvu, Likoni, and also there's one that I've left out. I believe we have to compare all these results and see how it was. Remember, the turnout is, especially here in Vita, was just 17.48%. It's really difficult to say right now, but at the end of the day, by the end of the day, we will be knowing whether really the efforts here in Mombasa County and the coast region as well have borne any fruit in terms of drawing many people to support the Jubilee Party.
Okay, Kata? Okay, difficult to say is perhaps a safe way to look at it. I'm back now with my panel, Professor Macharia Munene, Professor Herman Manyora, Professor Peter Kagwanja, and Joy Mdivo, the advocates, all still with me. Some feedback. We were talking about Ndongo Wanaina a little earlier. I just saw a tweet. Ndongo Wanaina says, with all due respect to Dr. Kagwanja, I have never been his intern. I find it shocking for anyone to dismiss two-thirds of the country.
He came with a brown shoe to the Kenya Human Rights Commission. I was the research director, 2000. Ndongo Wainaina met him in Cape Town. So let's not have this debate.
Oh, Professor Kagwanja has receipts.
Yes.
You have receipts. And he goes on to say what Professor Macharia has done is reinforce the exclusionary governance and politics that has been at the heart of the Kenyan problem.
Ndongo, the one thing about democracy is the right of a person to be wrong and to express his wrongness even when he knows he's wrong, as he is. So we don't go there because he's just out of his mind. Now, I was going to respond to something that Herman said.
Right.
He talked about overwhelming boycott of this exercise yesterday. But the figures do not seem to agree with that. 35,000 or more polling stations operated.
87% according to the IEBC.
Yes. That one, now if you do it in terms of fractions, on 1 out of something, there are about 41 or 42,000 polling stations. Now, that translates to about 1/8 of the polling stations that did not operate. Certainly, 1/8 cannot be overwhelming compared to 7/8. There's no way. Let's get things there. Yes, there was a low turnout in some places, it's true. But to paint a picture that is not quite accurate is kind of misleading.
Are you trying to downplay the effect of the boycott?
No, I'm not going to downplay it because there were some people who did not vote.
But they're not significant enough.
No, the 7%, the one out of 8 polling stations can be explained because some of them were because of illegalities, criminality. When people are forced not to go to and vote, and things like that. Then we have a lot of people who wanted to vote and they were harassed to stay away. And that one, it should be taken into account. So 1 out of 8 not being there cannot be overwhelming. We need to clear that. The area, according to the IBC, the areas that are going to have repeat or fresh opportunity tomorrow add up to 1 out of 8. And there will be people who want to vote in those areas.
Okay.
I think Mashara is making it even worse for Jubilee.
Not for Jubilee, I'm speaking for myself.
I'm just saying, yeah. You are making it worse for
don't
Jubilee.
mix things. I'm speaking
for myself. Not
for
that
myself.
you are Jubilee, I'm saying, I'm only speaking English, that you are making it worse for Jubilee. Worse than it already is. If 80% of the country actually did vote, according to you, and the Jubilee can post such a horrible numbers we are seeing, then they are doing very badly. Then it's an indictment on the entire system. But you see, when we are on national television like that, people are watching us. And they are wondering what we are talking about. If Western, apart from Bungoma, some parts of Bungoma, or let's just say Bungoma, if Western Province, the former Western Province, Nyanza, apart from Kisii and a bit of Korea, the whole of most of Coast Province, and the other significant portions like Ukambani have not really voted, how can you say those who didn't vote come from significantly and from a geographical perspective areas of this country? That is self-delusion. The truth is, almost half, if not more than half of this country did not vote. And there's nothing wrong with that.
The truth is, the figures we have, there was voting taking place in 35,000 polling stations in this country.
Let me clarify. The IBC's 87% figure is of polling stations that sent an opening signal.
So
the chairman has also now said that only 6.5 million people actually voted, according to the latest figures. Out of 19,
as of yesterday at 5 o'clock.
No. Yesterday at 5 o'clock was 48%, which would have come to about 9 million.
Yeah.
But he amended that to say 6.5 million.
Yes.
Out of 19.6 million registered voters, is just a fraction of that, a third.
Let me say something also, Larry. Almost 20 hours since the polling closed, in an election with such a low turnout, in an election where we are only electing one candidate, president, more than 20 hours, we don't have the figures. That is telling you something. Something is cooking somewhere.
I don't know what. I don't know how to.
You know, that
in a
reminds
kitchen.
me. You know what he said. What he said reminds me of Kivuitu.
Yeah,
when he famously
maybe he's a friend of Kivuitu.
You remember what Kivuitu
said?
Rest his soul. When he famously said that I don't know what's happening. Maybe they're cooking the figures. I was there at KICC.
Now let me say.
Yes,
you're old enough to have been there.
I covered the 2007 election. I covered the 2007 election. I was at that room in KICC.
About cooking.
When township or something?
No.
Let me speak so that Joy can modify this because I want to
add some milk.
With some milk. Now, this is the position. It is criminal to instrumentalize an obstruction of the law. The way we are speaking here, Rari, like saying, oh, the boycott has won, the boycott. I mean, are you Kenyans or you are from Mars? We are saying...
Hang on, does being Kenyan mean refusing to accept the truth?
It is not about the truth, it's about the implication of the truth. The truth by itself doesn't say much. The truth is this. Our fathers, our founding fathers, and everybody fought for the right to vote. Now, if somebody told people not to vote, and every Kenyan refused to vote, we are back to the woods. Now, what we should be looking for, and this is my
our forefathers also fight for the right to choose not to vote?
Sure.
Because in a democracy that allows them to vote, they can choose not to.
But not when we organize goons to prevent people from voting, and then we want to blame it on the police for removing the goons from the roads. And my good professor here start talking about, oh, the Kenyans have not returned to vote, like it is something we need to celebrate.
Who organized goons, sir? Raila Odinga famously told his supporters to stay at home and pray.
In English, not in Swahili.
What
I'm a
President
Kenyan.
Kenyatta says in English and Swahili are different.
Yes,
Case in point.
Yeah.
I respect the decision. I don't agree with it.
Yes.
Then he went to Kenyatta Market in Swahili, said other things.
Yes.
So politicians are all the same.
So what I'm saying is the following. Rade, I think you and me as professionals should be calling for mandatory compulsory voting. Right. So that is what we should be fighting for. And I'm telling you, this is the agenda I'm going to take. Because never again in this country shall a politician use his region to defeat the right to vote. It's criminal.
Is it criminal to defeat the right to vote?
Yes.
My learned friend, please.
You know, we saw the other day on Wednesday, the Supreme Court voted with their feet. By failing to turn up, they actually voted
some
with their
judges
feet.
famously were unable to come to work.
It is quite true.
Which is the best excuse
But
for
they
not
were
showing
not
up
forced
at work
by
ever.
anybody.
Now, I'll
They
tell
were
you something.
unable to come to work conveniently.
They were not forced by anybody.
Let me give you, these are now confessions. These are my X-files.
These are your confessions.
Yes, I was once a magistrate. And if there was a case on my course list that I really did not want to listen to, I would turn up to work by 7:30 in the morning, have my clerk bring in the files, and in every file I would write, due to a personal emergency, the court will not be sitting today. By 8:30, I would be out of the station, and everybody would be back in the registry looking for new dates. That is how I would handle something that I knew mali nimewekwa siwezi kujitoa. So there are times public officials, we've seen it in our MPs, when there's a bill on the floor that they do not want to be on record voting for or against. When the bell finally rings, people just get up and get out and the doors are shut and there's no quorum.
Let me just...
Larry, let me tell you. I have a point.
Before you respond, I want to ask a follow-up, Joy.
You're going to respond when I'm done. The point
I've been known to ban people.
You try. The point I'm trying to make is this. By Kenyans refusing to turn up to vote, it is as much their right as those who turned up to vote. So if Professor says he's going to push for mandatory voting, me I'll object. Because we have to have the space
is it
where...
criminal to tell people not to vote?
At this point, no, at this point in time, it isn't. Because it's politics. In politics, you play the card that favors you. If the card that favors you is tell your people not to vote, then that's the card you play. But at the end of the day, one thing we must not, and that's the point I've been trying to make. If you try to look at the election versus the boycott, both of them were resoundingly successful in their own parameters. The boycott was very successful because the people who listened to Honorable Raila obeyed him to a T, and the people who also turned out to vote. Because if you look at the turnout, for example, in Jubilee strongholds, you have very good numbers turning out to vote.
True.
So for them,
some 70-80%.
And so for them, they're saying, you know what? As far as we are concerned, it was a year. It was a win. You've seen Akina Mandago giving their interview.
So you've been mentioned adversely, so I'm going to allow you to
oranges and apples.
Okay, I'm sorry. We do let the good man say, and then he.
You know, inanichoma sana.
Inakuchoma. Sasa toa.
Because Joe is a lawyer, and to equate voting a vote boycott to a Supreme Court boycott is a very grave issue coming from a lawyer. I have told Kenyans in public that they must see the Supreme Court as a shrine, a national shrine. Njoki Ndongo is supposed to be a goddess. We must go back to our history and ask ourselves, why did we bring the Supreme Court? In 2007, we almost slaughtered each other and entered into a civil war because we didn't have institutions of arbitration that could be trusted. And that is why we put there the Supreme Court. In any jurisdiction where you have a Supreme Court, it is not something where you take ordinary men and women to sit. You don't just pick any ordinary lawyer because he has finished 15 years and make him a judge of the Supreme Court. Because it is a court that makes fundamental decisions, serious decisions that could even break society. And therefore, to talk lightly about the boycott, in fact, if I was litigant, I would have taken these judges to court myself.
So this was a boycott in your view?
It's
The judges were just not able to come to court?
It is not fair.
It is worse than a boycott.
Larry, it is not fair.
It's a slap in the face of Kenyans.
It is not fair to condemn.
Sir, we're coming to you because you want to make a substantive point. Please. I know. You've been adversely mentioned. We'll give you plenty of time. Yes, sir.
It is not fair to pass condemning judgment on judges because they were given a day's notice to show up and some of them were not available. Okay?
Were unable to come to court.
Yeah, if Judge Ndongo was out of the country.
Could not find a flight out of town.
No, I don't know that. But the Chief Justice said
she was out of town.
Yeah, she was out of town or whatever. She was not available. So then you don't condemn her for that. Yeah?
Justice Ojwang and Wanjala were unable to come to court.
We give Judge Maraga the benefit of doubt that as the Chief Justice, he explained why the other judges could not be seen or could not come. He did. Now, let me also say this. We should make a distinction, clear distinction, between boycott and intimidating people not to show up.
Are you saying the judges were intimidated not to show up?
No, I'm not talking about judges
now.
I'm talking about the voters. Those who are intimidated not to go and vote.
Okay, you adversely
they did not boycott.
Sir, so now you can respond to Joy.
In this country, there is only one person who boycotted anything, and that is Raila Odinga. He announced it was
what about
his
Matiba?
right. No, I'm talking about this in this election.
Okay.
There is only one person who boycotted anything relating to the election, and within his own right to do that, and that is Raila Odinga. From a political point of view, I said that was criminal because he is the one who took the government, the Electoral Commission, to court, and his pleas were heard and they were answered and he assessed them. He cannot turn around and fail to go to court, to go to vote or to mobilize his people to vote when he asked for the vote. That is taking the country for a ride, and he will be held responsible for the losses in terms of money that has come to that. That's point one. Point number two.
How can you say only Raila Odinga boycotted if 6.5 million people voted, 19 out of 19.6, so 13 million people?
I'm saying the only person who boycotted
13 million people didn't vote.
No, that's what we are saying. Now, here, at what point did we see the transformation of one person's boycott into a mass boycott?
Okay.
And that is where we are talking about political incitement. We know Raila Odinga in August garnered 6 million plus votes.
That has been contested. That's why we are back here.
No, he might even have gotten 10 million votes. Assume can give him 12 million votes. Why would he call his 12 million people centrally to boycott the vote and not to vote? So that is where the criminality, the sabotaging, the subversion of our constitution, because our constitution gives every individual the right to either vote or not to vote. Why our fight with Murolongo was that Mzee Moi made voting public and interfered with our private right to vote.
Joy.
So Raila is now going beyond Murolongo and inciting us publicly not to obey our constitution or to make our choices.
Is that true,
to vote
Joy?
or not to vote.
Allow me to comment in this in two prongs, starting with the point where Professor is. I would agree to an extent about the subverting of the process, because in an election where you have two main candidates and then one says we boycott, so leaving only one choice. Let me use an example of what happened in Ikolomani.
Right.
It would be perceived, therefore, if you came out to vote, you are obviously voting Jubilee. And in that area, because it's an opposition stronghold, your secret ballot now is no longer secret.
Yes.
Because you're walking to the ballot booth is a declaration of who you're going to support.
Because even the voting itself became a political issue.
Yes, and that is why now we are talking about intimidation of voters.
Okay.
However, on the other hand, that's why we were encouraging, even if you're not going to vote, Let those who want to vote, because
All right.
your right to throw a punch ends where my nose begins.
Okay.
That's one point. The other point was about the Supreme Court. A mistake we did when we were setting up our Supreme Court is we made it accessible to the public without prior buffer zones. Let me compare it with where we were trying to borrow it from, the United States. The Supreme Court doesn't listen to every matter that is filed in the Supreme Court. There is a vetting system. So you can't file a matter today and be heard tomorrow.
Okay.
It is impossible. What we did with our presidential election, we said that the matter will be heard by the Supreme Court, trying to put some finality in it.
Okay.
But however, the way the Supreme Court is structured, it is supposed to be a law-making court, not a court of procedure. And that is why...
has a vetting.
No, and that is why...
Ladies, gentlemen, I'm sorry I have to cut you in because I'm running out of time for the 1 p.m. break. We're coming back to complete. I assure you I'll give you plenty of time. My apologies. Please stay with me. We are still waiting for that 10 minutes from IBC to make that statement. It's maybe 10 minutes in dog ears because it's not 10 minutes in actual this time and place. Though, right now though, a quick break on Decision 2017. We're back in just a few minutes to go on with this panel and maybe get a statement from the IBC chairman of Wafula Chebukati. here where NTV Seth Olale is. I understand normalcy is starting to return to Kibera. Seth?
Thank you so much, Larry Mado. Indeed, normalcy slowly creeping in Kibra constituency, which was almost a no-go zone yesterday during the repeat presidential elections. And just if you can just see what's happening, we have some activity, but not quite. Some of the residents have chosen to open shops. Some have rather chosen not to. And this is now the actual scenario here in Kibra constituency. I am at a place called 42 area, which is the last bus terminus when you're coming to Kibera number 8 area. And so on our way, we still saw some of the aftermath, and especially we were at a particular place called the Equity Bank, where is located at the Ayani Junction, and we saw the aftermath there. Actually, we saw the building which was torn. We saw windows shattered at the Equity Bank, Ayani Junction, and this is now the scenario here at the area 42 in Kibra constituency. As you can see, some few PSV crippling in this constituency, but we don't know what will happen tomorrow, because we're being informed that a section of the youth are also getting ready just to, stage some protests on the 28th, which will be tomorrow. And right now, I just want to, interact with residents over here. And boss, tuombe tu kwa majina waitwa nani?
Naitwa Amos Asiema.
Amos, kama unaweza tu toa kofia kidogo, alafu tu tueleze tu inakaa kwamba hali ya utulivu inaendelea kukuja hapa katika eneo bunge la Kibra, lakini hiyo jana hapa hali ilikuwaje hapa, hasa hapa hivi?
Hapa jana Kibira hapa hakungeweza kupitika, hakuna biashara ingeweza kufanyika siku ya jana, lakini tunashukuru kwa sababu siku ya leo ukiweza kuangalia at least kuna wale wameweza kufungua, lakini wanunuzi pia waonekane kwa sababu juu ya uoga. Maana watu wengi waliweza kununua vitu mapema wakihofia hii siku, lakini si ati kuhofia. Walikuwa wanajua kwamba hii siku itakuwa ni siku mbaya. Sababu ukiona wafunguzi wamefungua, lakini wanunuzi waonekani. So tunaomba tu wenyewe wangeza kutusikia, hawa viongozi walie juu, at least waone aliye chini pia anateseka kwa kweli. So waweze kaa chini, waweze kuongea, tuweze kaa na maisha mazuri yale ya kawaida kweli.
Na wakati kuna maandamano katika mali hapa, biashara wazi zimefungwa. Sasa uanga mnajidumu kivipi? Kwa sababu lazima labda muende madukani kununua chakula. Sasa huwa mna survive aje tuseme?
Unajua mimi nikiongea kuhusu experience yangu, mimi nimeshuhudia mahali hapa Kibra. Mimi nimezaliwa hapa Kibra, nimelelewa hapa Kibra, nimeoa hapa Kibra. Mimi nikiangalia kwa experience yangu ya 2007, watu walilani vitu mingi sana hapa Kibra. 2007 tuliweza kuhangaika sana kuhusu vyakula. Tulikuwa tunaondoka mahali hapa kwenda kununua vyakula kule Dagoreti, Kawangware na masehemu mbalimbali. Lakini wakati huu watu walikuwa wajanja. Wakiona kuna tension inakuja, watu hujipanga mapema. Mtu hujitoa, anatoa ile yake yako nayo, ananunua vyakula, anaweka kwa nyumba ili ikikuwa na hatari, hataki kukumbuka 2007, sababu tukiangalia 2007 kulikuwa kubaya zaidi. Unaona? So watu walilan 2007, so kama kuna tension Kibra, watu hutumia akili yao na wanajipanga kimaisha mapema.
Thank you so much. Just to remind you, we are at area 42, which is the last bus terminus here when you're coming to Kibra constituency, and a bit of normalcy being witnessed at the moment. And I'm just going to go around and try to maybe just interview some of the local traders as well, but also have Rogers, who is also a barber. And I'm just going to call upon Rogers. Rogers has come over even as we just try and, just try and interview some of the residents over here, as well as businessmen and women. And Rogers, you're one of the businessmen here, business people here in Kibra constituency. You own a barber shop. Just about to eleze Roger, biashara imetatizika kivipi ama maandamano kama haya mnayachukuliaje?
Biashara yenyewe sasa iko chini kama sisi watu wa barber shop. Sasa iko chini, jana tumefunga, hata sasa ni watu wachache, lakini bado iko chini. Unaona?
Oh, we are just out here, the Bomas of Kenya, and I told you there's a bunch of ambassadors over here. I just missed them because they're heading on to the other side. I see Ambassador Nick Haley of the UK and Robert Godek of the US. I was just hoping to speak to them, and then we missed them by a whisker. I'm going to just hang out around here, and hopefully they will come back and we can try and grab them, because this is actually Ambassador Nick Haley's car. So they will be in this general neighborhood. So This is outside the auditorium. This is outside the hall where the statement from the IBC is expected. Just come with me. And the level of security here is one that like you have never seen before. I have been here, covered other presidential elections. I have covered the referendum, which was also tallied here, the results. And I have never seen this level of security in here like I am seeing here today. So you need a badge. And I don't know where my badge is because I will not be able to go in without a badge. Okay. So you need one of these. This is a special one that allows you to come into the auditorium, and it is specifically for in here as well. There's a lot of security here. If you don't have accreditation, you can't get any clothes. And then there's an airport-style security search here. So if you've got anything metallic, I wonder if my mic will be allowed to go in. I'm going to have to try and speak to them nicely about that to see how far we can go into that. And once you've gone through this process, then you come into the actual door, which is access controls. I also need to remove my belt because, like I said, it's an airport-style security setup here, and nothing gets through. Okay, my mics and all of those are attached to my belt pack, so this is going to be dramatic. Hang on to this just for 1 second as I remove my belt pack and all of that. Okay, you should still be able to hear me. This is a bit of a process here to remove my earpiece. Oops, I just turned it off, which is not useful. I can't hear if I don't... Yes, I can hear you, Mike. This is problematic, so I'm going to put this in my pocket. And have to remove the actual mic itself as well. And yes, this is the level of security required to come in here and put that in there. That's okay? Okay, I'm just gonna go around all the way. Nenda na mic. Ama lazima ipite kwanza? Lazima ipite kwanza. Okay, just watch this because this has to go in really quickly. And then pia hiyo. I don't have metallic from the microphone. Even the microphone has to go through this. Everything has to go through it. Okay, so now you see the level of okay, I'm just going to have a mic brought to me from the other side. Apparently, I have to remove all this as well and put it there. So all of this stuff is in here, and I don't know if the camera can come in. Does the camera have to be searched? Do they have to search the camera as well? Do they have to go through the scanner? So, well, that's as far as you can go. The individuals of the camera must pass through the scanner. All right, Arnold is going to hold that camera. Rafa is going to go through the scanner for a moment. He has got to go and leave his stuff on the other side. Then he can come and be screened himself. Then when he's screened, after that, he can go through. Why is this level of security? Because it's necessary. Right. And this, everybody goes through this, the politicians, the ambassadors, all of them? Why has it become so intense? Why has it become so intense compared to the other?
Was there on 8th, and we have maintained the same level, probably a little bit better.
Probably a little bit better. Yes. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. He's just doing his job. Okay, he can come with me. And then over here now, you see the actual entrance. There's a bit of a queue, but there's a door that's completely locked in there, so you cannot come in unless you've got that card, which I have left in that little thing. So I'm going to have to grab it over here. Unless you've got this card, you can't come in. And I think I can try and queue here behind as you just prepare and just talking to the level of security you see outside the bombers. Okay, come with me. Let's see if we can I scan this? So come closer. This is where you have to scan your card, and then it opens and we can come into the Bomas auditorium. So he has to, including the cameraman. Okay, we've gotten this far, so I think we've gotten the point. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So that's the level of security that is involved. I'm sorry. Arnold is bumping into different people as we do this. So we're going to have to walk all the way back to our set. It's a lay of the land. So come with me one more time. Okay, I'm going to need to grab my stuff because I don't have my earpiece, so I cannot hear my director anymore. Rafa, where's my... Oh, which one is it? Excellent. All right, this is what I need to connect to my belt pack so I can hear my director in this process. Okay, excellent. Now I can hear Mike one more time. Come with me, Arnold. We have a cable situation here that we're going to try and make sense of. I just wanted to show you the lay of the land. So when you have politicians come in, sorry, come back with this side one more time. Your politicians come in, they usually park around here, and that's where a lot of the dignitaries are parking if they're not coming into the auditorium directly. That's where they have their staff and all of that. The restaurant in that area, there's the restrooms and all of that in that area of the Bomas of Kenya. But then the rest of us go through this process. Arnold, come with me. So we have a multifunctional team here. Arnold is actually one of our directors, but clearly he's also a cameraman. There's nothing he can't do. He's a man of many talents. We're walking back into our set where we see where our panel is sitting, and it will give you a lay of the land for what is happening and the level of preparation. I think we're doing all of this because we're trying to cover up for that statement from the IEBC, which has still not happened. We've still not been given that. Okay, and here we have the ambassadors. So we're going to try. Ambassadors, could I get a statement, please? Any kind of interview?
Not at the moment, thanks very much.
Later on?
At some point, yes.
At some point. We'll be waiting. So Ambassador Robert Godek and Ambassador Nick Haley of the US and the UK, they say, not right now, maybe later, they will try. We did try. Excellent timing, by the way. We didn't plan that. It just happened. It just happened. The guests are taking a moment. I'm going to grab you back because we have to do this. Professor Gwanja, Professor Manyora. This is where our set is, so this is kind of the back view of it. And we jump onto this as we come on set. And then Professor Gwanja wants Moti. Ruth Munye is our producer here. She's doing a fantastic job. Say hello to everybody. Say hello to Ruth. She's well done for keeping all of us taken care of. And Rafa is back on the camera now. Wonderful. So this is our set, and we're back here. We tried to get an interview with the ambassadors. They said no. Maybe later on. They went to grab some coffee because that's still not happening. They were trying to get coffee. There's a Java that's set up out there. Everybody needs some lubrication right now. And in these difficult times when the waiting game happens, that's what they're doing. So, okay. We were talking before we went to the break about the legitimacy or not of the question. And he thinks the boycott was overwhelming in this case. The rest of you don't agree so, but Joy was speaking just before we went to the break, and I took some time away for you. So I'm going to allow you to reclaim your time and finish on the significance of this political moment we're in.
I was talking about the Supreme Court before when we went on the break.
Yes. Which he calls a boycott, by the way. The judges boycotted that day when they went away. We didn't find quorum.
If you're on holiday or if you're somewhere else and then somebody's calling you back and it's calling you back for something that has got monumental proportions, you may not be in the frame of mind to want to deal, because it's enormous pressure. And we have seen the impact, for example, when they're delivering the judgment, how heavy a burden it is that they carry when they consider things to do with Kenya. So if it's 25th and you're talking about something that's happening on the 26th, that has implications on millions of Kenyans. If I was a judge, I would also find a reason out of it. For Judge Mulu, of course, it was understandable. The trauma of the day before, that's not something that you can really argue with.
Right.
So, but the point I was making was the Supreme Court corridors need to be hallowed corridors. It should not be easy to file a petition, to file an application today that is supposed to be heard tomorrow, that is implicating something that's affecting something that's happening the next day. There should be a way to insulate the Supreme Court judges from this, because they're the final court in the land. They are law-making courts.
So it should not be too easy?
Yeah. They're not just an adjudication court. There should be a starting point in all this that now ends up in the Supreme Court. So maybe if we're looking at a conversation after the election, people are talking about, let's have a look at the Constitution again. Maybe that's one of those things we need to look at. Where should electoral disputes ideally be played out? Should it go back to the High Court as the court of original jurisdiction and leave the Supreme Court only as an appellate court, as a final appellate court? Because I think they have been drawn into things that have caused disrepute. Because even the talk on the street was, Jubilee is in bed with the IEBC and NASA is in bed with the courts. It's not a proper allusion where you can be saying, by the way, that's where they go and they want to get their matters fixed. The judges should be able to rise above that.
You know, you said there should be hallowed courts, which is similar to what you were saying, that it should be a
there
shrine.
should be hallowed
It's just that the
corridors.
interpretation of how hallowed or shrine it should be is what you disagree on.
The problem we have
Larry,
had, sorry.
Please let me speak and then you'll speak, sir.
You see, Larry, and Joe is a lawyer. There are things like certificate of urgency. Courts can even sit at night, depending on the matter.
And the Court of Appeal sat at night that day?
Yeah. The Court of Appeal was called to adjudicate over an appeal. In the morning, it said it was unavailable, it was on holiday, but it was available on the same day at night to set aside or to stay the ruling of Justice. So, is it Odunga?
Yes.
You see, Kenyans are seeing all these things, and this is our country. The Supreme Court has a vetting mechanism. I'm not a lawyer like you, but I know when you go to the Supreme Court, the registrar of the Supreme Court does the first vetting before you are heard. Okay. Secondly, after the Supreme Court registrar, there is the duty judge. On that day, it was Chief Justice. Before then, it is given some place in the hearing. So, it is true there are procedures in the Supreme Court.
Sir, I want to stop all of you because I interrupted my colleague Seth Olale in Kibra. We were hoping to speak to the ambassadors. We still hope to do so sometime this afternoon. In fact, that is a bit more optimistic than that statement from the IEBC. Right now, though, let's take you back to Seth and Kibra. I apologize for interrupting you, sir. Please finish.
Thanks so much, Larry. It's allowed. And like I told you, I'm in Kibra constituency, Kibera, a place called 42, which is the last bus terminal when you are entering Kibra constituency from Ngong Road towards Kabarnet. And right now I'm with Helen. Helen is just one of the business women here in Kibra constituency. Helen, naona biashara inarudi pole pole. Hebu tueleze mambo leo imekuaje kufikia asubuhi ukiangalia kamera?
Actually, kuanzia asubuhi hakuna kazi imefanyika. Tumekuwa affected so much. Biashara imerudi chini kiasi. Yeah.
Nikiangalia kwamba leo wateja, kulikuwa na hofu kwamba watu wananunua vyakula kwa wingi wakihofia kwamba labda maandamano yatakuwa katika siku zijazo. Umeshuhudia jinsi kama hiyo kwamba watu wananunua vyakula kwa wingi wakihofia labda kutakuwa na maandamano?
So far wakati watu walisikia kwamba kutakuwa na maandamano, walikuwa wamejipanga before. Sasa kwa sasa hakuna biashara. Yes.
Na ukiangalia kwamba maandamano tuseme kama haya ambayo yanaendelea hasa katika wakati wa uchaguzi huwa yanawaathiri kiaje kama nini wanabiashara?
Yametuathiri kwa sababu biashara kama siku ya jana kazi haikufanyika. Tulishinda kwa nyumba the whole day. Vitu zenye tulikuwa tumenunua tumetupa kadhaa, zingine zimebakia. Yeah.
Way forward, according to you, way forward katika hali ya kisiasa Kenya, waweza sema nini?
Naweza sema tumeadhiriwa kiasi kwa sababu kila kitu actually haiko in order. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That is Helen, just one of the business women here in Kibra constituency. And you know what, pardon me for the wearing over there. This is the situation in Kibra constituency. As you can see, we have some PSV vehicles, slowly coming to this place. Remember that yesterday, this could not be witnessed here in this particular area because there were protests all over, exactly from Olympic stage all the way to here where we are, area 42 in Kibra constituency. And I'm just trying to, interact with residents and businessmen and women as well here in Kibra constituency, which is slowly coming to normalcy. And right now, I'm just going to talk to a pharmacist over here in this chemist. Habari yako mzee? Labda tutueleze mzee, ukisongea tu karibu hivi, kwa majina waitwa nani?
Naitwa Amos. And I work here. I've been here for some time. But since all this since they started the election issues, we have had it roughly because watu wakuji kununua madawa wanaogopa, like maybe as from 6 people don't want to come out because they feel like maybe they are threatened. Especially working in Kibera, it's quite it's quite an issue because people feel like they are targeted and they can't come out, meet the goons out there, they can attack them. But we just feel that things should change. Like if the president-elect, the one who's in the office, I think it's high time that he realized that he's not a president for only like 2 tribes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have to interrupt you here because also Dennis Okari is standing by. But before I go to Dennis Okari, just want to let viewers know that we are in Kibra constituency, an area called 42 Terminus. And yesterday, this particular place witnessed a lot of chaos, if I may say, because there were protests, there were running battles between the police and security, between the police and a section of protesters. And I'm just going to call upon Rogers once more. And Rogers is just one of the businessmen in this particular area. And Rogers, there were reported incidents of casualties after yesterday's protest. Unaweza tueleza nini kuhusu? Kulikuwa na madai kwamba kuna watu ambao walipigwa risasi na polisi. Hebu tueleze tuwe kama mkazi, kama ulishuhudia jinsi kaa hiyo.
Nilishuhudia kuna watu wawili walipigwa risasi, mwingine Equity, Bombolulu, lakini walipelekwa St. Mary's. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rogers. Of course, viewers will keep you up to speed with what is happening here in Kibra constituency as far as normalcy is returning to this particular area, which was a hotspot yesterday during the repeat presidential elections. But right now, I want to hand you over to Dennis Okari, who is in Kisumu County.
Well, thank you very much, Seth Olale from Kibra. We are here in Kondele, the same place we were yesterday, well, for the better part of yesterday. And we are in Kisumu County. This was the epicenter of clashes yesterday. And today is a stark difference. It's like night and day. As Eric pans the camera, you can see the activities back to normal. Yesterday, Kisumu County was a ghost town, especially the CBD and this entire Kondele area. But business is resuming. Life is coming back to normal. We can see vehicles already using the access roads to the different estates in Kondele, going even into the CBD. Yesterday, no one was allowed to go in. We had many young people had come out to protest with chants and slogans of no elections, barricading the road. But today, we are not seeing any barricades. We are not seeing stones, apart from the few that are still at the center of the roads. And vehicles are moving in, matatus are going in, personal vehicles are going in, trucks are moving in with goods and services are back to normal. The border riders are back. The kiosks and the markets have opened. The shops have also opened. And this is the same picture when you go around the CBD here in Kisumu. Life has come back to normal. But if we are to describe the atmosphere, it's still a bit tense because people are anticipating for a statement from Nairobi, and from many of the people that we've talked to, they do expect that the IBC chair, Wafula Chebukati, will call off the election that is expected tomorrow. Remember, the IBC chair had postponed the election to tomorrow when poll stations are expected to be opening. But from the look of things and from the feel from the ground, people are still very adamant, and they're saying that there won't be any elections. Now, this was the center where tires were being burnt here. There's still tire wires around. You can still see people gathering themselves together. People are still conversing on the events that took place here yesterday. There was a heavy security presence here with anti-riot police and the police water cannons and tear gas canisters, live bullets as well. And protesters were coming out, and it was a cat and mouse game. There was a push and shove. Police were trying to push the youth to go back as far back as you can see from the pictures on the camera here. But then the youth also were trying to repulse the police officers. And so that is what we saw for many hours yesterday. But the roads are now open. We are not seeing a lot of security presence around. However, we do expect that things are going to change later on in the day towards the evening, because yesterday we didn't see voting materials being moved to the different polling centers. Kisumu County has 1,027 polling centers, and none of them received voting materials. And we expect that this evening the transportation of these materials will start going to the different polling stations. However, people are saying that they will try to block the roads again to stop these materials from reaching to the different polling stations. Religious leaders from Nyanza issued a statement earlier on in the day, and this was led by Bishop Professor David Kodia of ACK Bondo Diocese, who was flanked by politicians and other religious leaders, including the Kisumu County Governor, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, and they raised several issues. Among the issues they raised was there's not going to be any repeat polls in the 4 counties tomorrow. And they were saying this is a recipe for something else that they term as, and I quote, ethnic cleansing. So they've asked Inspector General Police of Police Joseph Boynet to withdraw the police from Kisumu, and they're alleging that we are still going to see the same action. Yesterday, going into the night, we could still hear from the CBD gunshots being fired, and people have been taken to hospital. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital has been busy since yesterday, and so far I can report that 53 cases have been reported at the hospital, 3 deaths, including a Maseno University student who was shot last night. 15 people are nursing gunshot wounds at the hospital. 4 are admitted. Many others have been released to go back to their homes. So that's the kind of picture that we have here in Kisumu County, where many are still saying that they will not still come out to vote. They're still very defiant, and they're saying that they're waiting to see how things unfold. And we are here trying to keep watch on the events that will transpire, not just now, but towards the evening, into the night, and even tomorrow morning. Now I want to hand you over back to Larry Madowo, who is at the Bomas of Kenya. Larry? And they're saying that they're waiting to see how things unfold.
Defiant is one of the ways to describe it. I'm sure they will all be looking to NASA, which has a statement at 3 p.m. this afternoon, Dennis, as to what to do next. But it's a big contrast from what you saw on the streets, and you were out there yesterday battling tear gas and barricades and fires on the roads. So is that likely, in your view, is that what you think will happen again tomorrow, or will they be much more peaceful and perhaps just stay at home?
Well, Larry, we do still expect that the youth are going to turn out tomorrow and still try to block all the access roads, trying to stop anyone from moving anything. No vehicle was seen on the streets yesterday. It was only police vehicles and perhaps the media. And we were also being suspected of ferrying ballot papers. So there's a lot of suspicion in Kisumu County. We expect the situation to be the same even tomorrow. And so from the conversations we've had with people, residents here, just from the barber shops to the markets, they're saying things are not going to change. They will still not come out.
Dear Kenyans,
there's a lot of suspicion in Kisumu County. We expect the situation to be the same even tomorrow.
the Commission has received Form 34S, all Form 34S electronically through the KIMS kit in areas where voting took place. Additionally, returning officers have started arriving with Form 34As and 34Bs that were sent electronically to the National Tallying Center for verification process. And so far, we have received a total of 37,045 forms, 34As, 37,045 Form 34As. Verification process will certainly take some time. Once the hard copies are received from the returning officers, they will be verified with the scanned electronic copies from the KIMS kit and announced. The Commission will be announcing verified results per constituency. As at now, we have received results from 15 constituencies: Mathare, Nambale, Mwala, Mwingi West, Ndarakwa, Dagoretti South, Kajiado South, Embakasi North, Kajiado Central, Roysambu, Tarbo, Ndia, Bomet East, Kandara, and Kathiani. Verification of results from these constituencies commences immediately. The returning officers are in the house. We wish to remind Kenyans that the election results can be accessed on the web portal, and if you want to verify, please proceed to do so. We also want to urge you, all Kenyans, Ladies and gentlemen, please be patient and calm as the results continue streaming in. We acknowledge the fact that you want to move on with your lives, and as such, we are working around the clock to conclude this election process. So thank you. We shall now proceed to launch this exercise of verification, and once it's done, we shall be back to give you a further briefing. So if you have any questions, please hold until we kick off the verification process, and then we shall be back to continue with the briefing. Thank you. You can hold your questions until that moment.
Well, that's IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati at the Bomas giving another briefing. They've not been good with time in terms of giving these press briefings. However, many people here in Kisumu County are still anticipating a press briefing where they expect the chair to announce that there won't be any elections, not just in Kisumu County, but in the other counties, Siaya, Migori, and Homa Bay. They are still waiting and listening from their leadership, that is, from the leaders of NASA, which is now a resistant movement. They're expecting something from their leadership in terms of direction. At this particular moment, I can confirm that the Seventh-day Adventist leaders are also having their own meeting, because they did write a letter to the IBC chair seeking for the postponement of tomorrow's election to another date. So far, there's been no response whether towards the postponement of tomorrow's election to another date. So people are still waiting for something. And like I described the atmosphere, it's still tense. Things have come back to normal. There's relative calm within the city here in the city of Kisumu. But people are anxiously waiting for some form of direction from either their leadership or from the IEBC themselves. But the status quo remains. They are still defiant. They're going to resist any attempts of any elections being held tomorrow. And yesterday, the picture that we had was a lot of protesters were outside some of the polling stations. Others were from a distant place, from distant places, just monitoring and just looking at the polling centers, whether there are activities there, and try perhaps and stop anything that is going to be released from the polling, from the main tallying center to the polling stations. We do expect, however, that tomorrow the picture will still be the same. There is not going to be any much difference. They're still saying they will not come out to vote, Larry.
All right, many thanks, Dennis. I'm sure a lot of people, like you mentioned, waiting on that press conference by NASA at 3 p.m. We'll obviously cover it live for you right now. We'll cover it for you live when it happens. A very brief statement from the IEBC. They didn't give us much. They didn't explain anything that Wafula Chebukati has already tweeted. We're looking inside the auditorium where the ambassadors, a lot of the other guests are inside. They perhaps also trying to come to terms. And with this statement and the verification process, he says, has begun. He did not take any questions until when that has happened. So we don't know when that will be. They're not committing to any timelines, which is kind of strange in itself, because we don't know when that might be. I'm here now to conclude with my panel. I want to ask a big picture question right now. I want to ask, actually, before I go back to my panel, I want to take you back to Migori one more time, which is one of the counties where the repeat election will happen. We'll go to him in a moment. Big question. What does this election and the outcome, at least the turnout figure we have, big picture, what does this mean? Professor Kagwanja.
Now, the big picture is this. We are back, Raila deliberately has taken us back to Murorongo, where you polarize the country between those voting for me and not voting for me, so that people cannot publicly walk to a polling station in Nyanza because they already are saying publicly as for so the sanctity.
What about
of
those in Makweni or Bungoma or other places that didn't show up?
Yeah, the sanctity of the private ballot, secret ballot, has been violated, and somebody needs to be held accountable for that. You violate the sanctity of the privacy of the ballot. That is not right. That's one implication. Then you go on top of that to claim some moral legitimacy that because there was not voting in this part or that part, therefore this shows how popular I am. You have intimidated people, you have coerced people, you have violated their right to vote, directly and indirectly, and therefore the only thing that need to be done this time is for the court to take its course, because there is criminal liability here, and I really want us to get that point, because you cannot all the time.
Who has criminal liability, Prof?
Yeah,
who has criminal liability? Is it the person who committed illegalities and irregularities, forcing a fresh election, or the person who did not feel confident in the new process that they asked supporters not to vote?
The court is there. It's not going anywhere. IBC is there. It's going with there was an exit position. If you are not happy with the way IBC is conducting its business, go to court. If you are not happy with the way the election is being conducted, you go to court. Any other alternative, protest, in other words, is a violation of our constitution.
All right, let's leave it there for the moment. I want to go to Migori now. Enoch Sikoli is still there for us. Enoch, what is the view from where you are?
Thank you so very much, Larry Mado. Indeed, it has, after a calm morning, this afternoon, we've just witnessed a battle between the police and the protesters here. As you can see from where I am, this has been an area of battles. It has been a battleground between the police and demonstrators who are residents of Migori County, supporters of the NASA coalition. In the morning, it was relatively calm, but we're yet to understand what triggered the battle between the police and the protesters. Remember, the protesters had vowed to keep calm until tomorrow, when they were to ensure again that any efforts by IEBC to conduct elections here are subdued. But today, we've just seen here, we've just witnessed, and right now what I can tell you is just witnessed one person who has been rushed to hospital in an ambulance after sustaining injuries and the battles between the police and the protesters. Where I am standing right now is River Migori here. If Malama can show you, the bridge here is kind of what has been separating between the police and the protesters. Protesters have been on the other side, but right now what we can say is, what you can report is that the protesters have been pushed by the police back to let's say to the estates here in Migori County, especially on this side. As you can see, Larry Mado, in the morning, these shops, some of the shops here were opened or had been opened, but right now they are closed. The town has again come to a standstill just a few hours before elections or repeat elections are conducted here as scheduled by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. But again, that remains as the people of, it remains to be seen, as the people of Migori County have maintained that they will play this game between them and the police to ensure that no ballot material, no officer or official of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is allowed into the polling station, or even is allowed to conduct the repeat presidential election that was postponed here in Migori County. This just showing this the fibers from the tires here, and I can see here, we can see members of the Kenya Red Cross just moving around, going into the villages, going into the estates to find out how many have been injured in the melee. You can see here, if I can show here, Lama, if you can move with me. These are broken bottles. You see broken bottles, just showing the battles here in Migori County or Migori Town. As we can move, let me show you the distance that has been here between the protesters and the police. The whole battle was here along this bridge. This is River Migori. And actually, at a particular time, we saw the protesters had wired this bridge with electric wires. We can understand what was the logic behind it, but there was a wire here, an explosive wire from an electric pole that was connected to the stones here. You can see a heap of stones that have been erected just ahead of me. They've blocked actually this road that you can't move to Isebania. This is Migori Isebania Road. So you can't move from town. And on the other side behind me, they have blocked the Migori Wendo Road or Migori Kisii Road. So actually there is virtually no entry and exit of Migori town on either side of the town. So here the police and the demonstrators have been reduced to battles. Here I'm seeing another ambulance coming in fast. Just an indicator that probably they found another person or two or maybe three who have been injured in these battles between the police and the demonstrators. I can see a member of the Kenya Red Cross indicating to the police that probably they need to move fast from that. As I told you earlier, Larry Mado, one person has already been taken to hospital after sustaining injuries in the battles between the police and the demonstrators. Police have been used to use tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse demonstrators here in Migori County. Remember, they have remained vigilant. The residents of Migori County have remained and vowed that actually they will actualize that move to stop any any move by the Independent and Electoral and Boundaries Commission to conduct elections here. So Migori County, this has been the situation and is still tense, but we will still keep you updated on the happenings here. Back to you, Larry Mado, the Bomas of Kenya.
All right, Sikole and Migori for us, many thanks. I'm now concluding with my panel. Straight question, Professor Kagwanja. Has Raila proven with this election and the boycott that is nationally relevant?
I think if you look, all the former leaders of eminence, from Moi to Kibaki, went out to vote. Maraga went out to vote. Everybody
That is not an answer,
No,
sir.
I'm answering you. Raila has actually demeaned himself into a tribal chief. That's all.
Professor Manyora.
Before I answer, I must make two observations quickly. One, Chebukati has just sprung and come with 15 constituencies. Some of them 400 kilometers from here. Constituencies just around Nairobi here and in Nairobi itself. Let it not be that somebody is playing monkey business, because Kenyans will be, we must get away from this kind of thing. How can it be that this long, when we are dealing only with a presidential election, Chebukati can come this many hours with just 15 constituencies? Secondly, they have scheduled a repeat election in some parts of this country for tomorrow. I urge them as a person who loves this country and peace, let them look at the provisions of the law and find out whether it is possible to declare Uhuru president-elect without voting in those areas. If they find there are gray areas, they can even move to the Supreme Court for an advice on the same.
I saw Senator Murkomen already say that all of those constituencies combined do not make a difference.
Yes, that's
and
what I'm saying.
Declare
So let us not have
anyway.
bloodshed in those areas when we can declare President Uhuru president-elect without voting in those areas. Now to your question. Raila has proved he's not anybody you can wish away. In fact, some people may not be happy to hear this. I think without the instruments of state, without the instruments of power, Raila has such a power that it definitely rivals the power of those with the instruments of state. But going forward, and I must say this, Larry, if I were asked what to do in this country today, let us declare President Uhuru president-elect. Let there be no petition. This is my own wish and prayer. Let him be sworn in. Once he's sworn in as president, I want to believe he will have the confidence he now perhaps lacks to put the country together and come up with a national conversation or dialogue that will see us out of this mess, which many people may not agree with me, but we are in a position where we could be heading towards destruction.
So NASA should abandon its grievances?
If we swear in President Uhuru Kenyatta and he receives proper advice, not from court poets, proper advice from serious Kenyans, he will be able to sit down with Raila Odinga and the rest and even talk about a fresh election at some point when it is legally possible.
Professor Munene, what does this election and the little we know about the outcome so far mean in the big picture? Mike.
is one, Raila has been relevant to Kenya for a long time. It is not this one that has made him relevant. He has been relevant. And he garners substantial amount of votes. He doesn't win, but he garners. And those cannot be ignored, for that matter.
He says his victory has been stolen from him 3 times.
Well, he is allowed to be wrong many times because he keeps on saying the same thing. So if Raila was smart, and if he was getting good advice from those who claim to advise him, first of all, he's losing credibility. Odingaism as a cult is disappearing in front of him, and he's responsible for that disappearance. He should advise his followers, those who are followers, to stop intimidating voters. Those who don't want to vote, fair enough, but don't intimidate voters. And those people who are banning, throwing stones, and we've just heard here somebody saying it will not take place. We are going to make, this violence, which should not be allowed. And as a leader, Raila should rise above himself and advise his people to behave. The bishop, I think, made a mistake. You should say that very openly. He made a mistake. He should be advising people to obey the law, not to violate the law.
You're talking about Bishop David Kodia?
Yes.
Of the Anglican Bishop of
I'm
Bondo.
talking about that one.
Let me tell you what one person says as you respond to that.
Yeah.
Finally, a man of God who speaks truth to power. The spirit of Bishop Muge, Okulu, and Gitari lives on.
He's far from that, because he's in cahoots with those who are violating the law. That's what he's doing. And then, as somebody who has a collar and a prominent person, actually his statements could be construed to be an insult to God and Jesus.
Okay. And finally, what does this election for you, and the little we know about the outcome and the turnout, mean for you? Big implications.
If I look at the big picture, one of the things that comes out for me, I am glad we got to this point. I am glad we had the election. I am glad we had the boycott. Because what that has done, it has confirmed what we have known on the law, that the country is fractured and needs repair, for starters. But what it has also done is that as a country, we have stayed within the law. Because now, even if somebody wants to challenge, there's something to challenge. There's something to take to court. And if the court decides that they're nullifying this one again, we have a process within the law where we can see a way out. And for me, that is a comfort. Because what we were looking at earlier was going to be the law of the jungle. But now at least we have an opportunity as Kenyans. We have something that we can take to the Supreme Court and say, look at this one. Did it meet the threshold? And where do we go from here? The other thing that I'm seeing also, big picture from this election, is also the fact that, as a professor has said, Professor Macharia, you cannot understate the importance of Honorable Raila in the Kenyan politics. It's something that many might want to wish away. We've had the word Raila phobia being used, but we've realized that Raila mania is also very much alive.
Tribal chief, he says, nothing more than that.
No, because he has support across the board. So there is a big base of support, yes, in Luo Nyanza. But the people in Makueni are not Luos, but they were also standing with him. The people in Kitui are not Luos, but they still stood with him.
All right.
We have to understand that moving forward, one of the things we must do, this constitution had a very lean executive with only 2 people, the president and the deputy. Maybe the time has come to have a conversation of, should we expand that space? Should we look at it in terms of our own realities? Should we create, for example, extra room at the top? Or should we, for example, have split races where you run for presidency? If you fail, there's a separate race where we are running for senators and governors, where you can stand again. We need to find a way to ensure that national leaders do not lose prominence, because this new constitution has seen very strong leaders fall by the wayside because of this.
Before we do that, Larry,
I'm out of time, so yeah, really quickly, sir.
Credible elections. Before we do all that,
credible
we
elections.
must have credible elections.
And we had them.
And we had them.
No.
No, we had them.
No, we didn't.
Raila asked for them.
Why are we here?
We are sabotaged. Raila sabotaged.
We are where we are because the
studying.
Supreme Court said the elections were not credible.
Okay.
Yes, and Raila sabotaged the fresh elections.
How did he? We can't begin that discussion all over.
That's for another day.
Yeah. sabotage.
We will leave it there. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. Joy Mdivo, Professor Peter Hagwanja, Professor Haman Manyora, Professor Masharia Munene. Wow, that was interesting. What a day. That was quite something. We just saw a statement from the IBC chairman Wafula Chebukati, which could have fit in a tweet or two because it was very long on prose and short on details. We're hoping that we'll have a bit more information and maybe an opportunity to ask questions because we have questions. All that in the hours ahead. Our coverage does not stop. I'm going to be leaving it here, but my colleagues from the Maamuzi 2017 team are coming up next. And I'll be kind of hanging around here at Bomas of Kenya, hoping that we have another briefing coming up in the hours ahead. Look out also for 3 p.m. the NASA press conference from Okoa, Kenya. We're going to take that live for you. And we're here until the fat lady sings. My name is Larry Meadow. On behalf of the team over here, thank you for watching. We're back in a moment.
Naam, ni siku ya pili tena mchakato wa kujumlisha kura unaendelea sehemu tofauti nchini Kenya. Huku tume ya IEBC ikiwa na harakati ya kuweza kupokea form 34A na form 34B.
Kweli kabisa, kama tunavyoona shughuli ya kuidadisha kura inaendelea katika maeneo tofauti. Tume ya IEBC inaendelea kuthibitisha matokeo katika kaunti hizo pamoja na katika kituo cha kitaifa cha Bomas. Katika baadhi ya kaunti shughuli hiyo imekamilishwa. Haya yakijiri, watu wawili wameuawa kwa kupigwa risasi huko Bungoma, huku agizo la IEBC la uchaguzi ufanywe kesho katika kaunti 4 za Nyanza likiendelea kuvutia hisia tofauti.
Naam, unatazama maamuzi mwaka 2017. Mimi nafahamika kama Rashid Abdalla.
Na mimi ni Jamila Mohamed.
Na tunaona habari kila pembe ya nchi ambao wako tayari kuweza kutueleza mengi yanayoendelea wakati wa Kenya wakisubiri matokeo ya uchaguzi wa urais.
Kweli kabisa, wanahabari wetu wako katika miji tofauti ambao watatujuza yanayoendelea kwa sasa katika maeneo hayo. Tunaye Dennis Okari kule Kisumu na tunaungana naye hivi sasa. Dennis, nasikia viongozi wa kidini na wa kisiasa wamesema hatutaki uchaguzi kaunti ya Kisumu. Hebu tueleze taswira iko vipi?
Na asante Jamila, taswira hapa Kisumu bado ni hali ya wasiwasi, ingawa kuna utulivu ambao umerejea katika mji mkuu hapa kaunti ya Kisumu. Na sasa mahali ambapo tulipo ni Kondele, eneo la Kondele. Hapo jana kulikuwa na maandamano na kulikuwa na makabiliano kati ya polisi na waandamanaji ambao walikuwa wakirusha mawe, wakirusha chupa kwenye barabara kuu za kuingia katikati mwa jiji. Hivi sasa picha ambazo unazotizama ni hali imeanza kurejea kama kawaida. Kuna magari ambayo yanapita, ingawa kuna bado mawe kando ya barabara, na mawe haya yaliwekwa jana. Tairi pia ziliweza kuchomwa na wale ambao walikuwa wakijitokeza kwa wingi wakisema kwamba watasusia uchaguzi na hawatapiga kura. Lakini kwa sasa tunaona bodaboda zimerudi, magari, pikipiki zimerudi, matatu pia, wasafiri wameanza kutumia matatu, watu wameanza kuingia na magari katika barabara ambazo unazoziona kwenye runinga. Jana hakukuwa na magari yoyote ambayo yaliruhusiwa kuingia kwa sababu vijana waliweza kuzifunga barabara, walifunga barabara kwa mawe, kwa miti, walipasua chupa, kutoboa tairi za magari ambayo pengine yalijaribu kupitia hizi barabara. Pengine niseme ambulensi peke yake ndizo gari zilikubaliwa kuingia na kubeba wale ambao walikuwa ni wagonjwa na wale ambao waliweza kuumizwa katika makabiliano hayo na kupelekwa katika hospitali ya Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Kwa hivyo hivi sasa hali imeanza kurejea kwa kawaida. Kuna utulivu, ingawa kuna wasiwasi. Wengi ambao tumezungumza nao hapa katika kaunti ya Kisumu wakisema kwamba wanasubiri mwenyekiti wa tume ya uchaguzi ya IEBC Wafula Chebukati kutangaza kuwa hakutakuwa na uchaguzi hapo kesho. Wamedinda na kusema kwamba hawatahusika katika uchaguzi huo, na wanashangazwa ni kwa nini jana kukuwa na uchaguzi na ni kwa nini kesho kumetangazwa kuwa kutakuwa na uchaguzi. Navyozungumza, kumefanyika mkutano na viongozi wa kidini, na viongozi hao ni wa kutoka kanisa la SDA Seventh Day Adventist ambao waliandikia tume ya uchaguzi ya IEBC na wakaomba kuahirishwa kwa uchaguzi hapo kesho kwa sababu ni siku ya kuabudu. Na pia pale awali kulikuwa na taarifa ambayo iliweza kutolewa na viongozi wa kidini na pamoja na viongozi wa kisiasa akiongozwa na gavana wa kaunti ya Kisumu Profesa Anyang' Nyong'o, na pia kulikuwa na viongozi wa kidini ambao waliongozwa na Askofu Profesa David Kodia wa ACK eneo la Bondo, ambaye alizungumza na katika matamshi yake alisema kwamba kama viongozi wa kidini wanasimama kidete na wananchi wa Kisumu na kusema kwamba hawatashiriki katika uchaguzi, na wakaomba Inspector General wa polisi Joseph Boynet aweze kuwaondoa maafisa wa polisi ambao wamejaa katika eneo hili na kuomba wasiweze kuongezwa hapo kesho kusimamia shughuli ya uchaguzi kama vile ambavyo ilivyotangazwa na tume ya IEBC. Na kikudokezea pengine ni kuwa kutoka hospitali ya Jaramogi Oginga Odinga kuna visa vingi ambavyo vimeripotiwa kwa watu ambao bado wanaendelea kupata matibabu na majeraha ya risasi. Kati ya visa 53 kuna vifo vitatu ambavyo vilifanyika. Kuna kuna kijana wa Maseno University ambaye aliweza kupigwa risasi jana usiku na akafariki. Watu 15 bado wanaendelea kuuguza majeraha ya risasi pale hospitali. 4 bado wako katika hospitali ile, na wengine wameweza kutoka hospitali na kurejea nyumbani. Hali ilivyo hapa sasa hivi ni viongozi wanatembelea wananchi na kuzungumza na wananchi, na wengi wanasubiri kupata mwelekeo kutoka kwa viongozi wao wa kisiasa ama kupata mwelekeo kutoka kwa tume ya uchaguzi ya IEBC. Kesho itakuwaje? Hali itakuwa ni ile ile kama ilivyokuwa pale jana. Wamesema kwamba watajitokeza katika kushiriki katika uchaguzi. Tumeweza kuona walinda usalama wakishika doria magari yao yakipita katika sehemu tofauti jijini, katika mji mkuu wa Kisumu hapa, wakilinda doria. Wananchi pia nao wanajikusanya katika vikundi, kando na wale ambao wamefungua biashara zao na kuendelea na biashara zao kama kawaida, wakisubiri mwelekeo, na kesho wakingoja siku ikifunguliwa itakuwaje. Jana kulikuwa na visa vingi ambavyo viliripotiwa katika sehemu tofauti katika kaunti ya Kisumu. Kulikuwa na milio ya risasi siku nzima, na usiku wakati ambapo tulikuwa tunapeperusha habari zetu kutoka hapa, pia tuliweza kusikia milio ya risasi kutoka sehemu tofauti kama Mamboleo kwa mfano, na sehemu zingine pia. Na hospitali bado wanaendelea kupokea wale ambao wamejeruhiwa, wamevunjika mifupa yao, pengine wengine ni kuanguka kutokana na kukimbia, na polisi nao kuna wale ambao tumepata ripoti kwamba kuna wale ambao wachache pia wameweza kuumizwa katika makabiliano hayo na wale waandamanaji. Kwa hivyo taswira ilivyo sasa hivi Kisumu, katika kaunti ya Kisumu ni ya utulivu, ingawa kuna wasiwasi kidogo, kama vile ambavyo nilivyosema, wakisubiri kuona mwelekeo utakuwaje, na tutakuwa hapa tukipasha ripoti kamili kwa masaa ambayo yatakuwa yakifuatilia, ili tuweze kueleza ni yapi ambayo yanaendelea. Kwa sasa hivi picha ambazo naziona ni kama vile ambavyo nilikueleza pale awali, barabara zimeweza kufunguliwa, mawe yametolewa katika barabara, ingawa yamewekwa kando, ishara ya kwamba pengine kukitokea mambo yakibadilika watarudisha yale mawe katika barabara. Tairi pia zilizochomwa jana bado tunaona mabakshishi yake yako kando ya barabara. Kwa hivyo hali ndivyo ilivyo katika kaunti ya Kisumu.
Asante sana Dennis akiwa mjini Kisumu, atueleza taswira ya mambo ilivyo huko hii leo. Hali ya utulivu imerejea kwa kiasi fulani, Rashid. Unaona wananchi wanaendelea na shughuli zao za kawaida, lakini usisahau wakazi wamesema hawatoshiriki uchaguzi wa kesho. Rashid,
ilikuwa ni taswira ambayo imeweza kutoka, tunampiga picha wetu Isinta akiwa kule na mwenzake Dennis Okari. Sasa ni zamu ya mwenzetu Enoch Sikoli ambaye amekuwepo katika kaunti ya Migori aweza kutueleza hadi kufikia sasa msimamo unabadilika ama msimamo bado ni ule ule.
Na Rashid Abdalla, bila shaka taswira ni tofauti na Kisumu. Hapo awali hali ilikuwa tulivu, lakini kwa sasa kama mwenzangu Mulama ataweza kuonyesha tu picha iliyopo kwa sasa, ni kama maafisa wa polisi wanajaribu kuondoa vizuizi vilivyokuwa vimewekwa hapa na waandamanaji. Hii ni barabara ya kutoka Migori kuelekea Isebania, na hivi sasa haipitiki kwa maana unaona mawe jinsi yalivyowekwa. Ni kwamba wameweka kizuizi kikubwa sana kuhakikisha kwamba hakuna gari lolote au pikipiki inaweza kupita hapa. Ndivyo hali ambavyo imekuwa, lakini kukujuza tu ni kwamba muda mfupi uliopita kulikuwa na sarakasi hapa, kulikuwa na mchezo wa paka na panya, maafisa wa polisi wakipambana hapa na waandamanaji, hasa wakifukuzana, na maafisa wa polisi wakiwafukuza waandamanaji kutoka eneo hili hadi mule mitaani. Kumbuka kwamba hapa tuliko ni katika daraja la mto wa Migori, na hapa ndipo waandamanaji walikuwa wameshika doria upande huu, na kuna upande mwingine kule wa kuelekea katika eneo la Awendo. Hivyo basi ilikuwa inamaanisha kwamba hakuna mtu yeyote ambaye alikuwa anaruhusiwa kuondoka ama kuingia katika mji wa Migori. Waandamanaji vivyo hivyo kuhakikisha kwamba hakuna masanduku au makaratasi ya kupiga kura.